afternoon. I'm Jaime Chavez Alor. I'm the Latin America Policy Director for the New York City Bar's Cyrus R. Vance Center for International Justice. I am very honored to moderate this international pro bono practice supporting the rule of law panel, with such an amazing and experienced group of experts. Thank you for joining our panel. I know that you have many interesting options, 12 simultaneous options to be precise. So thank you for being here with us. As a way of, as a brief introduction, we all know that the rule of law is a fundamental principle of any just democracy. It means that everyone is subject to the law and it is applied fairly and impartially. Pro bono work is legal work that is done for free, typically for people who cannot afford to pay for legal services, and it can play a vital role in advancing and supporting the rule of law. Pro bono work can support the rule of law by providing access to justice for those who would otherwise be unable to afford it. Pro bono lawyers can help people to understand their legal rights, to navigate the legal system, and to obtain justice. This work is many times not limited to supporting one individual, but public interest matters. Organizations like the Vance Center for International Justice provide pro bono legal representation worldwide to dozens of NGOs and international governmental bodies in 3 areas: human rights and access to justice, the environment, and good governance. Pro bono work can also help to promote the rule of law by supporting legal reform. Pro bono lawyers can work to improve countries' laws and legal institutions. In addition, pro bono work can help build the legal profession's capacity in a country. Pro bono lawyers can provide training and mentoring to lawyers in developing countries, helping them to develop the skills and knowledge they need to uphold the rule of law. I know we all want to hear from our panelists. I will introduce them very briefly because if I read their bios, I'm going to spend 45 minutes just doing that. We're going to have 2 rounds of questions, and then we're going to open it to questions from you all. The idea is that we can conduct this panel as a conversation. So short answers will be welcome in order to have more questions. I'm going to start and you'll have 3 minutes, which is, I know, very short, but the idea is to have one key idea for you in general, in your experience. How can pro bono work support the rule of law? So maybe we can start in order with Todd Crider. He's a partner at Simpson Thacher, and he's a member of the executive subcommittee of the Vance Syndrome.
Thank you for that. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, also among friends. Pro bono to me has a very important role in supporting the rule of law. But I think you really need to sort of step back and look at what the ethical obligation of lawyers is. Here in the United States, we've treated it as something that's normative, and ultimately the bars have determined that lawyers do have an obligation to provide pro bono services. In some cases, it's not defined as a requirement that results in the lawyer being disbarred or in any sense disciplined, but there is an aspirational component to the rules in the United States where you should do pro bono work. And I think the reason is, and that's been expressed many times, is that there's the view that lawyers have an ethical obligation that stems from their position as protectors of the law, sworn to uphold the law. And if you will, sort of a special role in society in ensuring that the law is in fact being upheld. Pro bono, by providing services to people who otherwise would not receive those services, can be a very powerful tool, particularly in calling to account authorities and insisting that the rule of law be observed. And we've seen this in our own country many times. Very recently, obviously, with the Guantanamo Bay prison, and many times it's been pro bono lawyers who have been at the forefront of seeking to bring justice and close that facility. Pro bono lawyers have, in many cases, sued uphold different constitutional rights. The civil rights campaign in the United States, which was carried out over decades, pro bono lawyers were at the forefront of that. So we've seen repeatedly in the United States that there's a very important role of pro bono lawyers in assuring that rights are upheld, and in many cases in helping to define the constitutional rights that should be upheld.
Thank you, Todd, for the very short, concise, and precise response. We have next Pablo Guerrero from Chile. He's a partner at Barros Errázuriz.
Thank you. Applause should be after we speak.
Let's wait.
Okay, no. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to be with all friends, which we have shared a long road. No, for me, pro bono is about engaging the legal profession in the promotion of access to justice, generally, human rights, political and economic freedom, and democracy generally, but also about using the tools and the privileges that we have as lawyers to strengthen civil society. And in doing that, and in creating a culture of pro bono, I think that collaboration, and especially international collaboration, has been critical. And let me tell you in a few words the experience that we had in Latin America. The first pro bono clearinghouses in Latin America, inspired in some way in the US experience, were incorporated in the early this century in Argentina, Chile, Brazil, later Colombia, Peru, and other countries, Mexico as well. As I said, they were inspired in the US experience. And their initial goal was not only to provide pro bono services, being a bridge between people in need and lawyers willing to do pro bono, but also, and probably more or as important, was to create a culture of pro bono work within the legal profession in Latin America. Pro bono did not exist as an institutionalized way of working for people in need in the law firms in our countries. And in doing that, we had a great collaboration from the New York Bar Association, and especially the Vance Center. We hosted several conferences in the region. We had instances where we had US law firms teaching in a way how to structure pro bono programs within law firms. And I think that created a movement, and now we have organizations, pro bono clearinghouses in most of Latin American countries, and that collaboration has continued. I think has been essential to promoting this culture, which we have not still fully developed, but I think we've made good strides to that.
Thank you, Pablo. We have next Antonia Stolper of Counsel at Shearman, retired partner, and the vice chair of the Latin America subcommittee of the Vance Center.
I'm honored to be here today. Thank you, Jaime, with this distinguished panel. And I want to follow up on Pablo's comments, because talking about the role we have with pro bono and strengthening civil society. And I read something on my Facebook feed today, actually posted by the Working Families Party here in New York, which used to be led by my daughter-in-law, which said that solidarity is a muscle. And I thought that was so powerful in terms of what I think of as pro bono, which is that if we as lawyers don't organize ourselves in support of civil society, nobody else is going to do it. That's our special role that we bring to this. And civil society in support of the rule of law. Right? We, all of us, are the rule of law. right? We're lawyers. That's our job. And so doing pro bono work, whether it's for individuals in need, whether financially in need, in support of, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all the very basic democratic rights that you can't organize a free society without, or in support of civil society who are in also supporting those groups. We need to be acting, all of us as lawyers, as the organized bar, but also as individual lawyers, working in solidarity with those actors. And so it's up to all of us to be front and center in the promotion of the rule of law. And pro bono practice is a powerful, powerful tool. Why? Because often in that promotion of the rule of law, we are up against incredibly powerful forces, right? Forces of government who do not want to abide by the rule of law. Some forces of the private sector who want to divert the outcomes of law to their own uses and not for the benefit of the rule of law. And so organizing ourselves as pro bono lawyers, we have the opportunity, and as Todd pointed out, the actual outcome to make a huge difference in that most fundamental right, which is the human beings. And we have seen, war, disorder, famine, all sorts of hugely negative outcomes to our societies if there isn't a rule of law that validates every individual's rights. So that's where we come in. We're the lawyers. Todd talked about it. Pro bono is a normative obligation. I absolutely ascribe to that, but I also think we have to do it because it's our responsibility as lawyers to be the progenitors of the rule of law.
Thank you, Antonia. Thank you. We have James Silkenat from the United States of America, president of the American Bar Association in 2013 and 2014. So the same question, 3 minutes, how can pro bono work support the rule of law?
I wanted to talk really more about the actual practice of pro bono rule of law work rather than the principle of it. The largest pro bono project ever undertaken by the American Bar Association was its Rule of Law Initiative, ROLI, which I know many of you have heard about, which brings together lawyers and judges to provide free legal assistance to developing countries, to courts, bar associations, touching on everything from constitution drafting to judicial independence to a creation of bar association, a whole range of issues. And more than 5,000 lawyers and judges have participated in these pro bono rule of law projects over the years. We now have volunteers and staff working on such projects in 60 different countries. I recently came back from a rule of law project in Zambia, helping them on legislative drafting issues, government officials and Zambian lawyers. It's a very rewarding experience, both personally and professionally.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dolores Aguinaco, she's a top constitutional lawyer in Mexico and president of the Fundación Barra Mexicana. She's going to speak to us in Spanish. So how can pro bono work support the rule of law?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. First, I am really honored to be here with these amazing lawyers to talk to all of you about the importance of pro bono work and all the positive implications that has on the rule of law. Thank you, Jaime. Pero antes que nada, voy a repetir lo que Antonia nos acaba de decir, la responsabilidad que tenemos todos los abogados para hacer trabajo pro bono. Porque todos sabemos perfectamente que en nuestros países hay constantes violaciones de derechos humanos, hay pobreza, hay desigualdad y hay una falta de acceso a la justicia. Solamente cuando somos realmente conscientes de lo que nos está pasando es que necesitamos acercarnos a la sociedad, a ver los problemas de la sociedad a través del trabajo pro bono. Muchas veces las actuaciones de nuestros poderes, de las instituciones gubernamentales, se alejan de lo que realmente está pasando en el país, lo que realmente sucede en la sociedad con los más desprotegidos. Y es exactamente en este rubro donde nosotros como abogados tenemos la obligación y la responsabilidad de tirar puentes, de hacer un puente entre el justiciable y la justicia, entre el gobernante y el gobernado. Solamente a través del trabajo pro bono es lo que nos da la fortaleza para este Estado de Derecho. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Professor Naigen Zhang, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Correct.
From China, Professor of Law, Fudan University. So how can pro bono work support the rule of law?
Thank you very much, Chair Mr. Alor. It's my very honor with other distinguished panelists today. As Chair introduced, I'm the law faculty member at Fudan University in Shanghai for 7 years. I'm teaching international law. I did take a few domestic cases as part-time lawyer before the year of 2000. However, I have no experience of international pro bono practice. The reason I joined this panel this afternoon is purely arrangement of the organizer. But I want to take this good opportunity to learn from other panelists and exchange view with each other. For my understanding of pro bono practice, there might be a free charge legal service because the lawyer uses the charges. It provides the benefits for the public. In China, the civil procedure law provides that in the case of infringement of environment or consumer rights, the legitimate body are entitled to initiate litigation for the public interest. It might be similar regime of the pro bono practice supporting the rule of law. Chinese Supreme People Court regularly published the case as guidance for the low courts, including pro bono case initiated by the People's Prosecutor or local committee for protection of the consumer rights on behalf of public interests. For example, in the city I live in, Shanghai Committee for Protection of Consumer Rights initiated case against the Oppo. Oppo is a famous trademark, the smartphone manufactured in China. The case was in the 2015. The reason is the company violated the law and the infringement of the consumer rights. I think that's the case in China already have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last but not least, Andrés Conde from Spain, CEO of Save the Children. So same question.
Okay. So thank you. An honor to be here. Really, really glad to be here. And actually, I think I could provide a very different perspective, the other side of the table, I would say, right? I've been,
Yeah.
for 15 years, I've been receiving pro bono services from thousands of hours of really skilled lawyers to solve our issues. So that's a perspective I think you can add to the table. To your question, how do I think it contributes to the rule of law? Let me answer first with an example. I just knew recently that there's, in this country, in the US, there are 4,000 lawyers working pro bono for unaccompanied children coming to this country. 4,000 lawyers, huh? All of them working for free. So those children who do have that legal advice, the majority of them get refugee status and their life changes completely. So it's obviously the protection status of a refugee is totally different. Those who don't, or either are deported or live illegally for years and years and years, maybe forever. So that's what the contribution that pro bono work does in a country like this and in many others. Another point from an NGO perspective, we provide services to the most vulnerable people and they need them and it's fair for them to get them from us, but it doesn't change their lives. So what really changed people's lives is effective policies and fair regulations. So we as NGOs, we have to fight for systemic change. So what we have is knowledge of what happens in the lives of these people, right? What we don't have is the legal skills to do that properly. So that's where pro bono can provide systemic change together with our understanding of needs.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, just in the vein of the conversation. I thought this was a very helpful contribution and really it goes to tie it back to what Pablo said at the beginning. In Latin America, there's been a process of developing clearinghouse organizations such as Fundación Pro Bono Chile, which are organizations that set up in order to identify and work with NGOs and organizations of civil society, and thereby connect with the lawyers who are willing to do that work. And as Andrés said, it's all about ultimately asserting rights, and you can make an enormous difference in the life of an individual, but by achieving systemic change, you can make a difference in the lives of thousands of individuals, right? And it's often the NGOs that are on the front line of that work, that know what needs to be done, that are connected to the individuals who need help, but also know the systemic inequities, the systemic problems. And the clearinghouse organizations that Pablo helped lead in Chile and in other countries have the role of working with the NGOs to connect to the lawyers. I just wanted to follow up on your comment, and all of that is what we refer to as the pro bono ecosystem. So you create an ecosystem that also links to the law schools, because in law school, you need to teach the obligation of lawyers to do pro bono, to be, watch out for justice, right? The guardians of justice in a sense. And all of that together, again, creating this ecosystem which helps support the rule of law and access to justice.
Thank you, Todd. No, that's very relevant and a perfect segue for the second round of questions, because I want to ask about more specific things that lawyers can do in the pro bono world to support the rule of law. So, Todd, while you have the microphone, so what are the topics in which you think legal pro bono community can support, and what kind of support can lawyers give?
Well, one of the really wonderful things about pro bono is that the opportunities are endless. And just to organize conceptually, I would think one broad category is access to justice. So it's the notion that people have rights, they have legal needs, but very often there's a failure of representation, so they don't have access to a lawyer. And so you said the most basic level, pro bono helps provide access to lawyers, and that cuts across myriad of areas that might be referred to as poverty law, for example. So you have access to benefits that you're entitled to, access to food, access to housing, access to medical services. You can assist victims of violence, children's rights, which obviously Andrés was referring to. So, there's a broad category, which is assisting people with access to rights that they have. And then obviously also in court, right? In most countries, there's a right to counsel on criminal matters. In some countries, there are systems set up for civil matters, but even where those do exist, there are a lot of holes in it and a lot of unmet needs. So pro bono at the very basic level helps with the access to justice. And then there's the issue of systemic change. And I think James referred to it, but lawyers obviously can become instrumental in bringing about systemic change. I referred to the civil rights cases in the United States, but there are examples, myriad examples in which strategies are set up in order to call attention to issues that can result in legislative change or bring about challenges through court in order to bring about more permanent and broader systemic change. Again, which we view as, I think, critical to the rule of law. And then finally, and I'll borrow something from the prior panel where they were talking about journalists, and that journalism always exists in a sense in friction with government, right? Because it's calling to account government. And I think lawyers need to do that too. And pro bono does that, can do that. Because otherwise, lawyers are just agents of power. And pro bono, they become more disruptive agents that call government to account.
Thank you, Todd. So we're not gonna follow the same order. We're gonna mix it up a little bit just to keep you on the edge. But James, so given the work of the ABA's Rule of Law Initiative, what pro bono opportunities now exist for lawyers and judges around the world?
At least through the beginning of last month, there were quite a large number of pro bono projects involving rule of law issues for lawyers and judges through ABA's Rule of Law Initiative. Some of these involve travel. Some can be done from a lawyer's desk or a judge's desk. Some involve just a week's worth of work. Some involve much longer periods of time. This work is done without pay, without a salary, but costs are covered by the ABA or the various governments or foundations that fund projects for it. And I think has been noted in several other cases. For many of the people involved in these projects, whether it's the volunteer coming from the United States or the local lawyer involved on the ground in some country, this winds up being, perhaps the most instructive, useful, personally involving project in which the lawyer has in his or her career. So current projects, just to flag some of the ones that are available now, if folks are interested. Human Rights Clinic in Pakistan, a criminal justice reform project in Moldova that I'm helping on. A financial investigations project in Indonesia, public-private partnership project on financial integrity in Thailand, human trafficking, combating human trafficking project in Peru, a project in Mexico concerning legal representation for union workers, and a regional project to support environmental defenders of the Amazon. That's the kinds of projects in which one might be involved. There is a history to all of this. We've been doing it for a little over 30 years now, and I even did a book on it, how all of this came together and how one can get involved in the process if you're interested. So if any of those projects or others are of interest to you, I'd be happy to talk with you after the program.
Thank you very much, James. So, Zhang, you mentioned, or you're an international law professor. So I would like to ask you about if there are any practices of pro bono in the International Court of Justice and how to promote the rule of law through these international courts.
Regarding the international pro bono practice, I have limited knowledge. There might be the case of a current pending case before the International Court of Justice. That's the Gambia versus Myanmar. You know, the Gambia, the African country, and the Myanmar is the Asian country. It seems to me it's a long distance between two countries. Why the Gambia initiated the case for the reason that the application of the Convention on the Prevention and the Public Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, usually say with the Genocide Convention. Both countries are the counterpart of these conventions. That's the reason even different countries in the different continents, but they had the case now pending before the court. Notably, the Gambia, and read the submission, Gambia does not claim any link with the alleged ex-Nazi Myanmar because the two countries took this far away. In its own words, Gambia, it has no individual interest in the case, but it acts for the common interest highlight of the state parties as the convention genocide. Given this, correct the Gambia legal action either for the common interest of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, because Gambia also is the member of this organization, or for the common interest of state party to the Genocide Convention. So it's arguably equivalence of the public interest litigation, like the domestic, but international. For my limited knowledge, if I'm teaching international for decades, it's the first case at international level. The case lists the counsel and the advocates, including several lawyers from leading American law firm. That's the Foley Hogan, FOLEYHOAG. I think that's the well-known the law firm. So it's in my mind, whether it's a free charger for this law firm, because in domestic levels, just say that in the United States, 1,000 lawyers have the work. It's an obligation, duty to do something for public interest. But this is the international levels where the law firm also free charge. I don't know. May you know that. Because we today talking the pro bono domestic international supporting the rule of law. So it must be reminded that since the 2005, the World Summit, the rule of law has been annual topic of the United Nations General Assembly. The international order is based on rule of law, on the charter. It has been universal value to recognize all the person, institution, and entity, public, private, including the state itself, are accountable for the just, fair, and equitable law, and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of laws. That's the law of law at domestic and international levels. How to promote the rule of law at the international level by we today talking the promote bono practice. So that's the my purpose today to join the distinguished panelists to want to learn from you, because you are the practice lawyer, no more than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Antonia, so could we go back to the examples of international pro bono to support the rule of law, and maybe if you could mention, because of what Andrés mentioned, the Keep Families Together initiative, because I think that's a very good example on how to activate the legal community to support migration issues in the region.
Great. I wasn't going to talk about Keep Families Together, but I did. Pro bono practice, and your example of the Gambia versus Myanmar, I suspect fully is in fact representing Gambia pro bono, because I can't imagine Gambia can pay for them. So I suspect I would be very surprised if that wasn't a pro bono representation. And that sort of goes to what I want to talk about, which is collaborating across borders, right? Again, solidarity of lawyers is not just an internal, we think of law, and the professor's point is so important. Law has this very international component to it, right? It's not just the UN Charter and the IMF and what have you, but it is very, very basic rule of law issues. Keep Families Together is a great example. This is a project that the Vance Center has been working with in collaboration with law firms across the country and across the region, and frankly, at this point, across the world, where because we have all these young children coming to the United States, often unaccompanied, but some of them accompanied, where in the prior government, and unfortunately it really hasn't changed enough in our current government, families were being separated from their children and without any documentation. So the children were left essentially not only undocumented, i.e. without papers allowing them to be legally in the United States, but without any documentation whatsoever, not without their passports, with their young children with no names, etc. I mean, it's really, truly crime of human rights violations of a really monumental proportion. And with the help of lawyers across the region, but also we have refugees from Afghanistan, we have refugees from North Africa, from China. I mean, there are refugees coming in all over the world, working with a network, an international network of lawyers to document children. And that means finding, and frankly, their parents. So that means finding birth certificates. That means finding aunts and uncles. That means finding home addresses. So we have a network of lawyers who have spread out, mostly in Central America and Mexico, but not at all exclusively, to do the very hard work of going to local communities, often where people don't speak the lingua franca of the country, to go to the local registry to find out, what the birth date and what the birth papers are and what the divorce papers might be, or the marriage papers, etc. It's an example of solidarity across the borders. At some level, I feel guilty as an American to be calling on this network of lawyers in order to support children and families who are in the United States that we as a US government have chosen to treat as badly as we are treating them. But grateful to the support that we've been getting throughout the region and the world to ensure that these families can be reunited and that they can be settled in the United States and treated appropriately. I wanted to give one other example of the critical importance of a global network of lawyers working together, and that's in the environmental space. Susan Kath, who's our Vance Center's head of our environmental program, the climate crisis is a global crisis. and requires a global response, and the need for lawyers who are expert in the area to collaborate, because, you know, if the solutions are needed to be implemented everywhere, and the need to bring technology, and we're talking legal technology in our case, from one country to another. I mean, the Argentines may have a good solution that will help the, you know, Colombians, and the Colombians may have come up with something that will help the Saudis, and the Saudis may have come up with something that will help the Chinese. I mean, wherever it is, the absolute critical need, because of the fact that we are, as a globe, subject to the vagaries of the climate crisis, is such where we have seen tremendous collaboration at both the local level to change local laws, and internationally through the work at the UN and in the various regional bodies to make changes. And we don't often think of how important lawyers are to that enterprise, right? It's sort of, it's politicians, it's scientists, it's entrepreneurs coming up with new products. But at the end of the day, the regulatory framework is critical in all of that. And who's in charge of that but us? And so, and it's also a way to the point that Andrés made, the international and local environmental and conservation NGOs are absolutely critical to this fight. And often, especially at the local level, very poorly resourced. And so the need they have for our expertise, again, globally, collaboration between folks, you know, outside a country and inside a country and across the countries to support that effort. I mean, that is what will save the planet, and it's what we as lawyers can be doing for that exercise in a collaborative and pro bono way.
Thank you very much, Antonia. And you mentioned the local efforts. So I would like to ask Dolores about a couple of examples of initiatives from the Fundación Barra Mexicana to uphold the rule of law.
Claro que sí. Mira, la fundación tenemos ya casi 23 años. Una fundación que se ha dedicado con el objetivo de acercar la justicia a los sectores de la población más vulnerables. Y a través, hacemos este trabajo, el trabajo pro bono, a través de los abogados de la Barra Mexicana, Colegio de Abogados, y de la presencia de los abogados donde está la Barra, que tiene más o menos 23 estados de la República, en donde ellos han colaborado también con la Fundación. Esto nos ha permitido permear más el trabajo pro bono y acercar más a las personas que realmente lo necesitan. El ejemplo más fiel que tenemos es en la pandemia. En la pandemia nosotros nos dedicamos, todos los abogados, realmente nos abocamos a ayudar a los niños que no podían seguir con su tratamiento porque el Estado ya no tenía medicinas o no quería dar las medicinas por una política del Ejecutivo que estuvo mal y que desgraciadamente murieron por lo menos 5,000 niños por falta de medicamentos y porque no se les pudo dar ese tratamiento. Pues la Barra, a través de sus abogados, que aquí tenemos algunos que colaboraron con nosotros, a través de los juicios de amparo, logramos más o menos cerca de 200 niños poderles dar el tratamiento y los medicamentos porque el Estado no se los daba. Otro de los casos que también tenemos es que, por ejemplo, en la pandemia, en los hospitales del gobierno, al personal, tanto médicos, enfermeras, gente de limpieza, no se les daba la protección adecuada para que no se pudieran contagiar y no llevaran la enfermedad a sus casas. Desgraciadamente el Estado no se los dio y a través de los amparos que la Fundación y sus abogados hicieron, pudimos darle esa protección tanto a médicos como a los enfermeros, como a toda la gente que trabaja en un hospitales. Y te puedo contar, o sea, llevamos en estos 23 años a lo mejor, pues, ¿qué serían? 3,000 casos que hemos llevado y que hemos cambiado vidas, porque esa es la verdad. Y además quiero decirte algo, que los abogados de la Barra Mexicana tienen la obligación de hacer trabajo pro bono. Yo sé que muchos no, pero lo hacen, pero la obligación está y la vamos a hacer en esta presidencia de Víctor Olea. Vamos a implementar una obligación para entrar a la barra, que tienen que hacer trabajo pro bono. Por otro lado, nos fuimos también en la educación. Desgraciadamente, otras políticas de este mismo gobierno, desgraciadamente les quitaron las estancias infantiles, así como las escuelas de tiempo completo. Eso significa que le daban tanto la educación como comida y alimento. El gobierno quita esto porque se le hacía muy costoso y nosotros a través de los amparos también pudimos rehabilitar otra vez este sistema de educación y darles alimento a los niños, así como que las madres pudieran dejar en unas estancias infantiles a sus hijos y poder ir a trabajar, porque de otra forma, por lo menos el presidente decía que pues, por eso tenían abuelitas, para que los cuidaran, no para las estancias. Sí, entonces, sí, así es. Entonces, desgraciadamente, con estas malas políticas, pues abre una brecha todavía mucho más grande en la sociedad. Y yo también quiero ser patente de que los jueces y magistrados del Poder Judicial en esta época de pandemia fueron mucho más humanos y entendían, entonces te daban los amparos y unas suspensiones tan amplias como era a todos los niños de ese hospital, tú tienes que darles medicamento, o sea, no era nada más exclusivo para determinados niños. Entonces, hay esa sensibilidad que tuvieron también los jueces y magistrados, también hay que reconocerlo. Entonces, creo que son de los asuntos que más nos han dejado huella. Aquí tenemos al expresidente de la Fundación, José Luis Nazar, es un ¿qué te puedo decir? Dedicado, responsable, que le podemos dar todos, porque busca realmente acercar la justicia y sobre todo que ha sacado una cantidad de personas de la cárcel que no eran culpables y gracias a las gestiones y a los litigios que ha hecho, pues hemos podido también liberar a mucha gente que no se merecía estar en la cárcel. Vamos, José Luis. ¿Qué te puedo decir? O sea, todo realmente los abogados que están aquí presentes y que están con nosotros en la fundación son los abogados responsables que sabemos que nuestro trabajo implica realmente abrir brecha y fortalecer el Estado de Derecho.
Thank you, Dolores. That's very, very interesting and two great examples about local efforts pro bono to uphold and support the rule of law. And there are resources available for lawyers wanting to do pro bono work, not only in Mexico through Fundación Barra Mexicana, but also in other countries. There are 22 institutions partnered with the Pro Bono Network of the Americas. And I would like, Pablo, if you could tell us a little bit more about these available resources. And I know that you've done a lot of tremendous work in the Pro Bono Network, so if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Not so much. No, just as part of the process of creating a pro bono movement and promoting a culture of pro bono in Latin America, we decided in 2011, I think, to sort of institutionalize and give more permanent being to this collaboration that we were having, and we created this Pro Bono Network of the Americas that now has 21 clearinghouses, I think, in 14 countries, 15 countries, I think, which I think has been very, very supportive of the pro bono efforts in the region in two ways. One, in promoting this collaboration and help between the clearinghouses. Each one of I mean, the network has helped develop, create new clearinghouses in new countries, have transmitted their experience of 20 years There are lots of ways in which we can learn from each other, learn between, how to promote the pro bono culture within each of the countries, the law firms, how to get funding for our work, which is not a minor issue. So that's part of what this network does. But it also engages in pro bono projects with an international component. For example, litigation before the human rights Ibero-American system, inter-American system. Reports on several public interest issues that are relevant for the region. One of them is migration. Migration has been a tremendous issue where, pro bono is very helpful in the region. We've tried to come up with reports trying to summarize the legislation, the laws in the several countries to help the several NGOs that are working with the people actually in need for migration issues and legal support on that. We have legal representation for several NGOs that have an international footprint in the region. There are many NGOs that have operations in different countries in the region, and they do require legal assistance from corporate work to work related to their substantive issues they're involved with. So I think it's been an initiative that I think has been very successful. There are many challenges ahead, but I think it's a good example of what collaborations can do in this area.
Thank you very much, Pablo. And this is collaboration in the Americas. But I would also like to acknowledge that my colleague Adaobi Edboka, director of the Africa program of the Vance Center, has been doing a lot of work to replicate some of these efforts in Africa to open new clearinghouses and to engage more lawyers to do pro bono work. Andrés, we've been talking a lot about the pro bono work, but mostly from the perspective of law firm lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you, as a recipient of pro bono work, you've had experience with companies, including Iberdrola, supporting or providing pro bono support to your organization. So what can you tell us about this experience and this collaboration with in-house lawyers?
Yeah, that's I think is one definitely to mention, is the most exciting project that we have at the moment in pro bono terms, and one that we have really good learnings out of, because as you said, we normally had pro bono support coming from law firms, which one could understand, well, is their core business, so it makes more sense. But this time, this company, Iberdrola, for those who don't know, is one, is the biggest utility company in Europe, second biggest in the world. So the core business is actually providing energy to people. But they decided that having a first-class legal department, why not providing that knowledge, that expertise that they have to the most vulnerable communities so that they can make a social impact out of it. And they actually built a pro bono project and promoted it really actively internally in the company. So we were told this happened. We presented them several issues as different as data protection issues of the families we work for, as real estate issues of the places where we deliver our services, or tax problems that we had with in-kind donations that we had from all the companies. So all of them were solved in an incredibly effective way. And the difference we felt compared to other situations was that the quality, the technical quality and expertise that we got out of them was totally amazing. The level of commitment that we had from these people, these lawyers from Iberdrola, seen from the speed in which they solve the problems, the proactivity they use. They came to us all the time trying to solve, gather information and do whatever they could. And also the empathy they showed. to the people that were suffering anxiety because of the legal problems that they had that couldn't solve was very remarkable. And also what we felt really different is the support from the company, because the company actually allowed them to use a significant part of their working time to provide these services to nonprofit organizations. So the project is that, I mean, just allowing a significant part of the working time to be dedicated to supporting legally nonprofit organizations. So it's something we hadn't seen before, but it shows how corporates can actually provide also pro bono services from a legal perspective in a truly effective way.
Thank you, Andres. This is very interesting. And I'm very happy because we are right on time to open the discussion to our attendees. So if you have any questions, comments, now is the moment. Yes, please.
Pablo, I have a question. Why Chile is leader in pro bono in Latin America? Why?
Just because we started earlier.
Let me repeat the question. Pablo, I'm asking why Chile and Chile through you, you are really leaders in pro bono and promoting the pro bono and making organizations and making congresses and seminars. That's a question that maybe when I was in Santiago 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was huge and amazing that you were doing that.
Thank you, but well, I don't feel we're leaders. We just started before. But I don't know. I think we had a very good group that started the Fundación Pro Bono. I was part of that group, but I was not the leader or anything like that. We had a lot of support from a lot of people, including my friends here, and a lot of people from the legal community. I think they understood what we were trying to achieve. And as I said, we started a little bit earlier than the rest of the countries, and I think that's one of the reasons we at some point looked like leaders. But I think many countries have done enormous efforts and have been very successful in creating a similar culture. I think Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, there are several countries that I think I feel we're part of the same effort, and we've been working together for 20 years. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? If not, then I would ask our panelists in the same order in which we started with Todd to just give us conclusion in 1 minute.
I'll pick up on the issue that was asked about Chile, because I think Chile has been a real leader in the region and has been an example. I agree, an early start helps, but also it's an issue of leadership. And in each country, we notice that leadership makes an enormous difference. 1, 2, 3 people and the right people being committed, has a massive effect on how pro bono grows and develops in each place. And one of the things that's very encouraging about Mexico, for example, is the quality of leaders that have emerged more recently. And that really promises a lot, I think, for the future of pro bono in Mexico. So one is just the quality of leadership. And in that sense, the difference a small number of people make, right? And that's one of the things that's a powerful lesson to me. And I think this occurs repeatedly throughout history. No change that's worth making happens without initially a small number of people engaging with that challenge. And if you have the right people and they're effective and stick to it, enormous things can happen. And pro bono is a great example of a way that occurs. The second idea I'd like to conclude with is the importance of an independent judiciary. Obviously there are a number of things that can be achieved pro bono wise, just by lawyers helping people through the system, right? But ultimately, the main thing that it can be achieved is something that's achieved to hold government account, to bring about change. And that only works where you have a system with an independent judiciary. And so I think as lawyers, one of our core obligations is to help defend that judiciary. We're privileged to work on that with colleagues in Mexico. We're working on it with colleagues in Guatemala, various other countries where, it's a real challenge. Again, as lawyers and for an effective pro bono, that really is an important component to keep in mind.
Thank you, Pablo.
Yeah, I want to stress again the importance of collaboration, and I was thinking again about the question that was made to me. I think one of the recipes of our success, at least in Chile, was that the initial project was very diverse in terms of the people that were behind it. It was not just a law firm. Lawyers are not very good at collaborating within law firms, and I mean less so among law firms. So the fact that it was not seen as something that was propriety of a single law firm or a special group, but a very diverse group of people, I think was the recipe for success. So I think that, encouraging collaboration and doing projects together, both locally and internationally, is what will make pro bono possible.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to make one point. Doing pro bono work as an individual is all about deciding to do it. I feel very strongly that you'll do your best pro bono work if you do something that matters. And so I think Pablo's point about collaboration, people have to feel excited about doing it. Those of us who are in private law firms who work to get our partners and our associates to work on these projects, it's all about getting them excited about doing whatever it is that they're doing. And so I would emphasize the importance of not saying that there's one kind of pro bono that you should do, that there's one right answer. The support of the rule of law of civil society requires a multiplicity of actors, right? The only way to fight oppressive governments is to have civil society acting in the ways that are most important to it. And so getting people into the pro bono world is all about getting them, grabbing them, and giving them opportunities to work on things that they feel matter. And that can be representing an individual. I love the discussion about getting children medicine. I mean, that will absolutely motivate those who know how to go into court and get a temporary injunction. But helping an NGO solve a tax problem, to Andres's point, is something that any tax lawyer is going to feel, yes, this is important. I'm helping those children because this is something I know how to do, that I have a special expertise in. And so to me, one of the key things about pro bono is being open about all the possible things. There's no right answer here. There's no one right project. There shouldn't be that much directionality. And that's why these clearinghouses are, both in the United States, but now throughout the world, are so important, because they're bringing in all the needs and allowing the lawyers who are collaborating with them to find that thing that's going to really push them out to do something that's really important.
Thank you, Antonia. James?
What's important is the impact of the work that's being done. Impact first on the country or community where the work is being performed, the changes that are made there, the improvements that are made there. And second, the impact on the lawyer doing the work. as most the folks who are involved in these pro bono rule of law projects have found, this is the most memorable part of their career, the work that they've done, the impact they have had, and the continuing relationships that they establish with folks in a different culture, in a different community.
Thank you. Dolores.
Bueno, antes de terminar, yo quisiera agradecer al Vance a través de Todd y de Antonia, porque nos han apoyado, porque ha apoyado a México con pronunciamientos para fortalecer la independencia judicial y levantar la voz para la defensa del Estado de Derecho. Muchas gracias. Y por último, I invite all of you to make the pro bono work the voice of all our countries.
Thank you. Yes,
My
Professor,
turn?
please.
Thank you. For me, the first conclusion maybe is that I have learned from other distinguished experts today for the pro bono at national and international levels. And secondly, the conclusion for me, the China may require the lawyer and obligation to do pro bono work for public. Before the year of 2000, when I was the part-time lawyer, I'm sure there was no such kind of obligation for each lawyer every year to do something as pro bono for public. Currently, as I know, maybe I need to check the law of lawyer to know exactly what's the requirements for lawyer, and but definitely it's not a mandatory. It's the volunteer work, because China now currently roughly we have the 500,000 lawyers nationwide. Not too many, because we have the huge number of populations, whether it's a practical for lawyer to do free charge work for so many people. I'm not sure. So it's, I'm looking forward to the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andrés, please.
I'd love to be the last one because I feel I have something really important to tell you. So no, but first that well now, I mean, New York is the capital of the rule of law because you all are here all together. This is the case, and this it's pretty amazing. So three things I'd like to say. The first one is the type of social challenge that we're facing at the moment. There are no way going to be solved by governments and the public sector. No way. It needs a strong and committed civil society. Second thing is that we NGOs and social organizations in general are living increasingly complex legal issues and compliance requirement, which is not bad, but is difficult for us. And third thing is that you lawyers play an absolutely key role in terms of the transformation for a better world. Really, I think that this world needs less social workers and more lawyers committed to systemic change. So the really important things I wanted to tell you is thank you, a really big thank you for all you do and your pro bono work that we receive so happily. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists and close the session with 9 words of what you mentioned that I think is a very good reflection of what pro bono work is to support the rule of law. These are leadership, collaboration, diversity, commitments, possibilities, impact, voice, learning, and transformation. So thank you very much, and thank you so much for attending.